Welcome to the Singer's Guide to Sheet Music. My name is Heather Baker and I will be your guide to discovering all the ins and outs of reading music when you're a singer. So in today's lesson we are going to do a little bit of revision, go back through some of the concepts that we've talked about in the last 3 lessons and just see if we can start to put those all together into one little pot so that we can begin to break down a new piece of music that we've never seen before. What I also want to do today is introduce you to the idea of dynamics. So how we understand whether we should be singing loudly or softly. And also all those other little symbols that you might see on the music that relate to how they want you to sing it rather than what they want you to sing. So let's do this. So we're going to have a little look at a piece of music that I have written for you that we can begin to decipher and work out all of the things that we've been looking at previously. So let's put that up on the screen for you now. So you'll see that this is a song. I've written some lyrics for you. So the lyrics are all written underneath the note that you need to sing, so that it helps you understand which words are being held on for a long time, which ones are shorter words. So let's just go through the first little section and let's look at the rhythm first of all. So you see that in the first bar, the words wheel practice. The wheel is on that minim, which is 2 beats long, and then practice, you've got 2 crotchets there, so that's 1 beat each. So again, if we start to clap our beat 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got wheel practice. Now we know that we have to clap 4 beats in the bar because we've got that time signature at the beginning that has that 4 over the 4, which tells us that we need 4 of those crotchet beats in the bar. So bar number 2, all the things weave. So all the, you see those are on your quavers, and we've got 2 quavers tied together there for all the. So those are 2 half notes tied together, so 2 halves make a whole, so that's 1 beat. Then we've got a rest. So that rest is a 1 beat long rest. That is a crotchet length rest, or a crotchet rest. So we've got all the rest, things weave, those are on your crotchet beats again. So that bar you've got, if we do our 1, 2, 3, 4, all the rest, things weave. So you've got to leave that rest, all the things weave. Moving on to the next bar. So the next bar, the words are learned, so. So the learned is on a dotted minim. So remember, as soon as you put a dot at the end of one of these, it makes it worth 1.5 what it would normally be worth. So our minim is normally worth 2 beats. As soon as you add a dot to it, that then makes it worth 3. Okay? So it's 2.5 of the 2 again, which is 1, 2 and 1 is 3. Right, maths. There we go. So we've got learned is 3 beats long, and our so, you see here there are 2 quavers, but there's only 1 word to be sung. So automatically we know now that the word so is going to move from one note to another, because if it was going to stay on the same note, we'd just put a crotchet there. But we're not. We've got 2 different notes here with 1 word. So it's going to change notes, and we'll go through that in a minute. So that bar, the rhythm for that, again, if we clap our 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got learned, so. Next bar has just 1 note in it all the way through. It's a 4 beat note. That's your semi-breve for the word far. Far. Okay, let's go that far for now. So now what else do we need to pay attention to? Well, right at the very beginning, you see our treble clef at the beginning of the music, which tells us a little bit of information about how we can work out what note we're singing, because we know this is written in the treble clef, not the bass clef. So we need to be thinking about that every good boy deserves football and that F-A-C-E, face, that we were talking about last lesson. That's how we know if we want to. That's how we know what note we're going to be singing. The other thing to watch for there is you can see there are two sharp signs. Before you get to that 4/4, before you get to the time signature, you see those two sharp signs. That's telling us the key signature. So that is telling us that every time we get to one of those notes, so here there is a sharp on an F and a sharp on a C. So anytime you hit any C or any F, not just the ones that those sharps are written on, not just those lines, but any C is, you know, C an octave below or 2 octaves below. Anytime you sing a C, it will always be a C sharp. Now, like I say, that's not necessarily the most important thing to know, but I want you to understand why it's there, okay? So you don't need to worry yourself about, oh, is this one a C or a C sharp? Because it doesn't really matter, because you'll learn the melody and then you'll be away. But I do want you to be aware of what that symbol is there for and what it means, so that it doesn't scare you, okay? So we've got those two sharps. That's telling us the key signature. That's telling us that every time we hit an F or a C, we need to be on a sharp there, okay? And then obviously, like I said before, the 4/4 at the beginning there, that's telling us there are 4 beats in every bar. So now we know the rhythm for the first little bit. Melody-wise, the note that we're starting on, can you tell me what note that is? The note that the word wheel is on. Have you worked that out already? Okay, that's an F, but it's not an F. It's an F sharp, because our key signature tells us every time we go for an F, it's got to be an F sharp. So, you know, not having kind of perfect pitch and knowing exactly how to sing exactly the note there, what you would typically do here is find an instrument that can play you your beginning note, and then that sets you off, okay? So your beginning note is an F sharp for this piece, which sounds like this. Wheel. I did just have to go and play the piano to find that note, just FYI. So I played my piano, I found my first note, wheel. So now I'm going to sing you through that first bit to the word far, so you can hear how this goes. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll practice all the things we've learned so far. That's how that's going. So like I said, when you're learning a piece of music as a singer, more often than not, you are learning it by hearing it first. And then what the music does is it helps to guide you. So if you've only heard it once or twice, it gives you a good guide to kind of follow as you're listening to it, to help you memorize it faster, essentially. What I'm not teaching you right now is how to sight read it. I don't need you to be a perfect sight reader yet. I just want you to be able to use this to help you out. So other little symbol, just to make sure that you clocked it and you know what it is, in front of the note on the word learnt, you see there is a natural sign. And that's because the word learnt is on a C. And if you remember, our key signature said every time you get to a C, it needs to be a C sharp. Well, on that note, I actually wanted a C natural. I wanted just a normal box standard C. I didn't want the C sharp. And so because my key signature is already set up to tell you it's got to be a C sharp, I need to put a little symbol there to tell you not in this case. And whenever that happens, when you put a natural in front of a note within a bar, it automatically kind of neutralizes all of those C's within the bar. So if I had put 4 C's in that bar, they all would have automatically been neutral until the end of the bar, which then resets. If I'd have put 4 C's and I just wanted the first one to be neutral, I would need to put a sharp in front of the second one so that you knew that, okay, it was just that one note that was neutral, now the rest go back to being sharp again from this point onwards. That makes sense? So if you see the same note with neutrals and sharps or neutrals and flats all in the same bar, that's why. It's just helping you recognize which ones need to go to the C. But that's why that sounded a little bit kind of jazzy sounding when I got to that point, because I'm going to a neutral within the key signature, which would normally be sharp. So all of that again, and you can sing along at home now. That's your first note wheel, ready? We're doing it slow because there's going to be a fast bit coming up. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll practice all the things we've learned so far. Okay. So let's break up the next little part. So the next bit goes, practice all the things we know now. So at the beginning of this next bar, you see there's another rest marker here. And this rest marker is a 2-beat rest. That is your minimum rest. And remember, it's the one going up off the bar is your milk. It's your glass of milk, remember? If that helps you to remember, great. So there's your glass of milk. That's your 2-beat rest. So this bar is going to go before you even start singing. And then the words practice, you've got your 1-beat notes here again. Practice. Next bar starts with your quavers, your 2 quavers for all the, then you have another rest. And this rest is a 1-beat rest. That is your crotchet rest. Okay, so you've got all the rest, and then again, 2 crotchets, things, we. Next bar is 1 long semi-brief, no. So 4 beats, and then the next bar is so that's why that's there. But again, bear in mind that you'll be learning this, just like most stuff, by hearing it first. So once you've heard it, you will kind of know that that's there. But as soon as you see something like a sharp or a flat or a neutral within a piece of music, you can pretty much guarantee it's going to sound that little bit, shall we say, different. So it's not going to be your standard note where you're expecting it to go. It's going to go a little bit in a slightly different place. So you can just be aware of that when you see that. So this next little bit, so we've done our first bit. Practice all the things we've learned so far. Right, so this next bit, we've got 1, 2. Practice all the things we know now. So that's how that's going to go. Yes? Let's try it from the top. You ready? So 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll practice all the things we've learned so far. Practice all the things we know now. You with me? Are you reading the music? And this is how you really get better at reading the music, is by doing it lots. You know, it's really useful if you're even, singing along with the radio at home. If you've got the sheet music in front of you, if you already know the song and you're just following it along, you begin to decode things much faster the more you do that. The more you just kind of have the music in front of you as you're doing it, the more you start to recognize those symbols and get more and more familiar with them. So the more you do, the better. So this next bar, let's examine this next bar. The words in this next bar is everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, we've. There's a lot of words to fit into this bar, and you'll notice that there's a lot of notes in that bar. So we've got here not just quavers, but we've got semi-quavers, which is half of a half, essentially. So each of these are worth a quarter of a beat. So everything, yes, 4 notes adds up to 1 beat. So it's very fast. You'll also see that there is a sharp in front of the first G. Now, like I said earlier, there's not a sharp in front of every single G because that would be very untidy. But you can assume that because there is a sharp in front of the first G, every single G after that within that bar, so not going after that bar, but just within that bar, will also be sharp, unless you see a neutral at any point. So within this bar, there's no neutrals, there is just that sharp. So every time you go to a G, it's a G sharp, okay? So the rhythm for this is why, it makes sense now, why I've been so painfully slow. Because when we get to this point, it speeds up. So we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, we've. That's how we've got to fit it in. So all 4 within 1 clap. All 4 of those notes, all those quarters into 1 beat. Everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, we've. And again, these are all tied up together. Remember that if there's only one of them, you'll see it with its tail dangling behind. But when there's more than one, we tie them all up together. And generally speaking, we wouldn't tie more than 4 together. We tend to tie up to 4 together at a time. And we know that they are quarter beats because they've got 2 lines at the top and not just 1. If they were your traditional quavers, you might still see 4 quavers tied together, but there would just be 1 thick black line at the top rather than 2. So we do our everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, we've. The next bar is just learnt, 1 long semi-brief. Learnt. Nice and simple. So the melody for this bit, we are going up and down and up and down, and you can see that straight away. So you can probably almost guess at what's going to happen here, because you can see that it goes from a G sharp to an F, which is actually an F sharp because the key signature says all the Fs have to be F sharps. So it's going G sharp, F sharp, G sharp, F sharp, G sharp, F sharp, G sharp, F sharp, G sharp, it's a bit of a tongue twister, but you get the idea. Up and down and up and down and up and down to the same notes throughout that whole bar. So you can, I'm not going to sing it for you. I want you to have a little try at home and see if you can figure out what that's going to sound like. Have a little try to yourself now and just see if you can work out what you think it's going to sound like. Okay, so I'll tell you. So it's gonna go, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything we've learned. So that's how that's going. Everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything we've. So it's back and forth between those 2 notes, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And you can see that. You can see how it's going up, down, up, down, up, down very quickly. Let's move on to the next bar. So the next bar, the lyrics are all the things we know now from this. And these are also semi-quavers, but we've only got 2 at a time. So 2 quarters, so we've got half a note, and then we have a rest marker. And this little rest marker, the one that looks a little bit like a little number 7, that is a quaver rest, a half a beat rest. So we're singing 2 notes in the first half of the beat, we're resting for the second half of the beat. And it follows that pattern throughout the bar. All the rest, things we rest, know now, rest, from this rest. Okay, the melody for that bit, you've got all the things we know now from this. Now if I clap it like I have done in previous lessons with an accented halfway marker, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you can see that on the and, that's when I'm resting, yes? All the things we've learnt now from this. Got it? So that's how you write that down. If you want a little gap in between, you need to put the rest markers in there. So that's what that's doing there. What it isn't is all the things we, because there's rests there. All the things we've learned now from this. You need to make sure that that rest is in there. That's what the person who wrote it decided they wanted. So as a singer, that's what you kind of have to deliver to an extent. That being said, again, if you are a solo singer, you have kind of leeway to do what you like with it. If you are performing in musical theatre, or you're doing something in a choir or any other kind of group that requires everyone to be doing the same thing at the same time, then it becomes a little bit more specific that everybody has to come off at the same time to make it sound neat and tidy. Whereas when it's just you, if you decide you wanted to, all the things we've learned now from this, you could mess it up, because that just becomes you putting your own kind of stamp on things by pushing and pull the rhythms a little bit. So from there, all the pause, things we pause, know now pause, from this pause, next bar we've got course. Again, we've got another dotted minim here. So minim with 2 beats, the dot adds half again. So 2 beats plus half of it, which is 1, makes 3. Maths, ta-da! So 3 beats on the word course, followed by another half a beat rest here. So another quaver rest before the word so, which is another half a beat. So we've got course, so. So the so is in the halfway point. Course, so. Got it? And then we're back to we'll practice all the things we've learned so far. So this last little section, wheel is a minim, 2 beats. Practice, 1 beat each, practice. Next bar, all there, you've got those quavers again, 2 halves. And then a 1 beat rest, a crotchet rest. Before 2 more crotchets, things weave. Last little line there, learnt. Here's another dotted minim. So another 3 beat note. Minim is 2 beats, the dot adds half again. Half of 2 is 1, 1 add 2 is 3. There's your learnt, 3 beats. And the word learnt has got that neutral sign in front of it again, which tells us that we're not going to be singing a C there. We're going to be singing, we're not going to be singing a C sharp there. We are going to be singing a C, just a regular C, because we've neutralized it back to just a normal C. Okay, so learnt is 3 beats, and then so, 2 quavers. So the word so is going to move, because we've got 2 notes there to put on the word so. And then finally we have this last far. Now there's something kind of new here for you to watch out for that I haven't talked about yet, but I want to draw your attention to. So here we have the word far, and it's written underneath a semi-breve, which is 4 beats long. But you see that there's this, what we call a tie, drawn underneath it into the next bar, where there is another semi-breve, another 4 beat note. And that little marker, that is what we call a tie, is tying those 2 notes together so that we actually sing the word far for 8 beats instead of 4. So it's tying the 2 together because we want you to sing for longer than the bar allows you to, if that makes sense. So the bar only allows you to put 4 beats in there. So if you want to sing something that is longer than 4 beats, you need to tie the note into a note into the following bar. So that marker there that looks kind of like a bracket, but down at the bottom there, that is tying those two notes together so we know that they add into one big long note instead. So instead of just fa, you know, we don't pause after 4, we carry on. Fa. So we've got to make that last one last for 8 beats. So we've been through all of that. Let's have a go at singing the whole thing through, and then you can rewind and do this a few more times if you want to, just so that you can kind of make sure that you picked up everything within this piece of music that we've, like I say, that we've kind of touched upon before. We're just going back over it. And again, the rhythms are also almost more important than what note you're on. But I do want you to be able to identify what note you're on, which is what we were doing in the last lesson. We were looking at, you know, how do I know whether I'm singing a C or a G or a D? So we've already identified that the first note in this piece of music is an F, but because of the key signature at the beginning, we also know that should be an F sharp that we're singing there, not an F. So as a singer, it's useful, you know, if you've got to sing something and you've got a pianist in the room and you just want your, you know, the note to start off with, if you can look at your music and go, oh, I start on an F sharp, you can say to the pianist, can you just give me an F sharp? They'll play it for you, and then you know what note you start from, which is incredibly useful to make sure that you are singing it in the right key. You're not starting on the wrong note. So let's give this song a go all the way through. Wheel, so that's your opening note. Are we ready? I'm going to clap the beat the wheel time. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 to help us with the rhythms. Okay, let's go. Ready? 1, 2. We'll practice all the things we've learned so far. Practice all the things we know now. Everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything we've learned. All the things we know now from this course. So we'll practice all the things we've learned so far. Good. So things that you can be watching out for when you pick up a new piece of music like this, look for the patterns. Look for moments that repeat. So for example, on this, the words we'll practice all the things we've learned so far, right at the beginning of the piece, the notes and the words there are exactly the same as the very last, we'll practice all the things we've learned so far. The only difference is that the last bar is twice as long because it's the end of the song, so we want you to hold it on for that little bit longer, right? But you can see that once you've learned that first section, if you can look ahead and go, oh, well, those notes are exactly the same length of note, same note that they're going to, then you automatically know more of the song than you thought you did already. Does that make sense? So looking for those patterns is useful. Also, for example, the words no and now, once you've got those no and now, those are the same notes that you're going back and forth from on the everything, yes, everything, yes, everything, yes, everything weave. So once you've sung no, now, you already have your notes for the next bar. So you can probably just go straight ahead and sing that without somebody even having to play it for you, because you already have those notes in your head. You've just sung them. You just need to now go back and forth to those quicker. So these are the sorts of things that actually help you out as a singer, is being able to recognize those little, kind of clues in the music that help you out. So let's talk a little bit about dynamics. So within a piece of music, when somebody composes something and they write it down, they might also want to give you an indication about how loud or how soft that part of the music was intended to be. And so there's a whole other set of symbols that help you understand whether the music should be sung loudly or softly or somewhere in between. And these are all dynamic markers. And so let's go through these and talk a little bit about what they all mean, and then show you a piece of music that has these in them. So all of our dynamic markers stem from Italian words. A lot of music, in fact most music language, comes from Italian, because Italian was the home of music and singing, and so the writing down of music began in Italian and continued that way to this current day. So the main markers for your dynamics are all letters. So we'll start with this one, this nice P. Now when you see a P on its own, that stands for piano, which means soft. So P meaning very soft. So if you see this written in a piece of music, it's telling you that the piece of music needs to be sung softly. It's a sort of kind of lullaby sort of volume. Now if I wanted it even more soft than that, I would double it up, because if you've got two P's together, that stands for pianissimo, which means, very soft. So if you want it really kind of, close to a whisper in terms of volume, then you want two P's. If you just want it, kind of around about here, then one P is enough, okay? So all you need to really remember is that the P means soft. Now you can rebrand that. You don't necessarily need to know that it's piano, pianissimo. Although if you've heard those words before, which you may have done, bandied around in popular culture, then that helps. But if not, find another word that begins with a P that helps you remember that those are soft, quiet parts of the music. Okay, on the other end of the scale, if you want something to be loud, you will see a F. Now an F on its own, just one F, that is forte, meaning loud, meaning forceful, coming from the word forceful. Yes, forte. And if you want it really loud, there will be two Fs there, okay? So again, double it up and you make it twice as much. So one P is soft, two P's even softer. One F is loud, two Fs even louder, okay? Now, if you want somewhere in between the two, which will be the majority of the time when we're singing, we're not going to be right at the one end or at the other end, we're going to be somewhere in the middle, then we need to use the word mezzo, which begins with an M, which I like to think more of as medium. Think of M as being medium. So if you see on a piece of music an M next to a P, MP, nothing to do with politics, your MP meaning mediumly soft. Yes, mezzo pianissimo. Mediumly soft, mediumly quiet. And in a similar way, if you see the M in front of the F, that is your mezzo forte, meaning mediumly loud. So not loud yet, just a little bit loud. Okay. Now you won't get just mezzo on its own. You don't get a kind of a middle marker. You're either mediumly soft or you're mediumly loud. There isn't something in between. So from the softest to the loudest, you will see a double P. Sometimes, occasionally, you might even see a triple P. If you see an extra one, they mean, we barely want to hear that you're there. But typically you will see a double P for very, very soft, one P for soft, MP, mezzo pianissimo for just a little bit softer, mezzo forte for just a little bit louder, just one F, forte for loud, two Fs for very loud. Friggin' forceful. Yes? And again, you will occasionally see three Fs, meaning, break the windows, it's that loud. Okay? So those are your markers, and you will see those scattered around your music. Now, as well as these indicators here, we have certain indicators that tell us when we need to be getting louder or getting softer gradually over a particular phrase, for example. And these markers look like this. So if you remember back to your school days and learning maths, greater than and less than markers, that's exactly what these are doing. So if you see that triangle starting closed and opening up that way, it means you're starting softer and you're getting louder as you go in the piece of music. And if it's the other way around, if it starts open and it closes up at the end, then it means you're starting louder and you're getting softer. So if we're getting louder, that's called crescendo. You may have heard that word before, crescendo meaning getting loud, okay? So if you see that little kind of open triangle like that and on a phrase, then it means you might start the phrase soft and then you get loud. That's the idea, right? Whereas the other way round, this is called a diminuendo. So we're starting loud and getting soft. So we start the phrase loud and then we get soft. Okay? So those markers, again, you will see those. And with the piece of music that you've been using during your kind of homework tasks, you can now go through that and identify it and see if you can find what you will generally tend to find with music is that you will start on the softer end of the scale and work towards the louder end of the scale. Because for the most part, we want songs to get bigger as they go on, to get more dramatic. So you're more likely to find a song that starts pianissimo, starts very soft, and then gets to the chorus and then it gets forte, a little bit louder, rather than the other way around. It's much rarer to find it that you start really loud and then you go very soft in the chorus. Not impossible, you will find some songs that do that, but it's rarer for it to be that way around. But either way, it's good to be able to just watch out for that. And particularly, again, if you're working in a choir situation, the dynamic markers will probably need to be followed. So if you recognize, oh, this next bit's going to be getting louder, then you already know before you get there, without even looking at the conductor, that you're going to have to start to build at that point. So these are all dynamics markers, dynamics meaning your louds and your softs. So as well as dynamic markers, there are also markers that we call articulations within music that tell you more about how a note should be sung. So not just which note, how long it should be, or what note you're on, but now a little bit more direction towards the expressiveness of that note. So the most common ones that you will come across as a singer is the difference between legato and staccato. You may have heard these words before, you may not have, don't worry too much. Legato, again, Italian words, so legato meaning kind of smoothly flowing. So if a piece of music is very legato, it means that it's very flowy from one note to the other. Oh, I know. Everything is flowing from one note to the other very smoothly. On the other side of that, staccato means the complete opposite. So if something is staccato, it's very short, sharp, and pointed. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Right? So it's got that very sharp up, up, up. We want to get there and get off it very quick. So let's look at how we recognize the difference between something that should be legato and something that should be staccato. What indicators are there in the music that will tell us that? And we're going to start with legato. Now the main thing that will demonstrate that we want it to be legato, other than seeing the word legato actually written somewhere, which you will do occasionally, the thing that indicates we want it to be legato is that we have what we call a slur. Now, a slur looks like this. Now, this might be slightly confusing because just a minute ago, I was telling you all about how in that art practice piece, we tied the last two notes together using a tie. Now this slur looks remarkably like a tie. In fact, they look exactly the same. So how do we know whether this marker is meaning to tie notes together or whether it's meaning to tell us that we have to sing those notes legato? Well, the answer to that is if two notes are tied together, they are notes that are next to each other, and they are notes that will only ever tie two notes together with one of these markers. They will be right next to each other, so there'll be no notes in between them, and they will be on the same note. So you cannot tie a C to a D. You can only tie a C to a C, right? If you change the note and you have one of these markers, it's a slur, meaning that you move smoothly from one note to the other. If the note is the same and you see this marker moving from one to the other, that tells us we are tying that into one big long note. So the way to recognize that it's a tie is that it is the same note, often across a bar line, but not always. And it's the same note, and there's never another note in between. So when you are using a slur to show that it's legato, now that slur can slur between two notes, or it can slur over a whole host of notes. So you might see one big long line going right the way through, maybe even 2 or 3 bars, basically telling you this whole phrase has to be legato, has to be smoothly moving from one word into the next. So that's what you're looking for to tell you that it needs to be smoothly sung. Okay, that's your legato marker. Your staccato marker, again, other than seeing the word staccato written in the music, which you will sometimes see, if the whole piece needs to be staccato, they'll usually write that right towards the beginning of the piece. So you'll actually see either the full word staccato or just stack with a dot to shorten it. Same with legato. You might see the whole of the word legato, or you might just see legat with a dot, just to shorten the word, basically. So if they want a particular note to be staccato, you will see this marker over it. So there's a little dot. Now again, this can be a little bit confusing because we used a dot to indicate that a note was going to be 1.5 lengths of the regular note, didn't we? So we had some dotted minims earlier we were looking at. So a minim being 2 beats, but when you add a dot to the end of it, it adds an extra half of that, so another 1 to make a 3-beat note, right? We've done that, we've done our maths, we're good at this now. The difference is a staccato marker always goes either directly below or directly above the note, depending on which way the tail is going. So if you've written the note with the tail going upwards, then the staccato marker will be directly underneath. Or if you've written the note with the tail moving downwards, the staccato dot will be directly above. It won't be at the side. If the dot is at the side of the note, that's telling you how long the note is. It's telling you to add an extra half again. But if it's above or below, depending on where the tail is, that's telling you that note needs to be sung staccato. We need to make that note short and sharp. And you won't likely see a staccato marker underneath a semibreve, for example, because if you're singing a semibreve, it's very difficult to make that staccato because it's a 4-beat note and you can't do a 4-beat note short and sharp. So you're most likely to see staccato marks underneath crotchets or something smaller. Crotchets, quavers, that sort of thing. Okay, but you're looking for these little dots. So if you see that written underneath any of the notes, that's telling you that needs to be sung short and sharp. So here are some other articulations that you might come across in your music when you're looking through it. So this one here is called an accent. So this is a tiny little triangle. Again, you're like, we just looked at triangles and they meant get louder and get softer. Yes, okay, we use a lot of the same marks slightly differently to mean different things, just to confuse us all. So when you see this triangle, it's a much smaller, very short triangle. It's not a big, long, thin one. It's a very short, fat triangle, and it will go directly again above or below, depending on where the tail is, the note that you're singing, and it will just be above or below one note at a time. And what that is saying is that you need to put a particular emphasis or an accent on that particular word. So if it's an important word that needs to be, kind of emphasized, then they might put a little accent mark above it just to make sure you know that that's the important word that you need to put a little bit more oomph into. Okay, so that's another one that you might spot. Now, what the best thing to do is, like I say, and I'm going to set you this as your homework, is to go back through that piece of sheet music that you chose to use through this course and see if you can identify any of these things. Now, your music might have lots of them, it might have none of them, but I want you to be aware of what they mean. And if you've got a piece of music that also has the piano part as well as the vocal part, you might find that you don't see any of these in the vocal part, but you might see it in the piano part. So again, just have a little look and see, do a little, fact-finding mission, see if you can spot any of these things within the music. Now, another one that you might come across is this one, and I'm going to say this wrong, but this is a fermata. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a pause, basically. This is a pause marker. I've always just called it a pause, so I'm not very good at the Italian on this one. But when you see this marker, what that's telling you is that the music kind of pauses at that point and lets you linger a little bit longer than your regular standard beat of 4. So you tend to find this towards the end of a phrase, but you can sometimes find it in the middle of a phrase. But so, for example, I have to make one up. Copyright. I can't give you an actual example. So, for example, if you want to pause on the word love, but you've got 4 beats in the bar, and you're saying, "How are you, my love? I am fine." So you can basically pause the beat, essentially, so that you have time to linger on a word a little bit longer before the beat kicks back in at its normal pace. Does that make sense? So again, you may or you may not find it. You're more likely to find this in like musical theatre music because it's quite a dramatic. I'm just going to pause before I go on and carry on with my melody. Yes? So that's what that's doing. It's just kind of putting a little pause on the beat for a minute so that you can linger on that word that little bit longer than you should really be allowed to if we were keeping the beat standard. Okay, so that little semicircle with a dot in it, again, another dot, but it's not a staccato dot because it's got that little semicircle over it as well. If it was just a dot on its own, it would be saying staccato. And if the dot was by the side of the note, it would be telling you that the note is worth an extra half of itself again. But if the dot is above the note with this little semicircle, then you know that you're needing to pause on that note. Okay, now there are more, but these are the ones that you're going to come across the most often. And I don't want to bog you down with trying to teach you everything that ever exists ever. I want you to know about the things that you're most likely to come across and most likely to use. You may often see, kind of things written, again, parts of Italian words. And if you do and you're not sure what that means, a quick Google will tell you. So, for example, there's a lot of terminology around the tempo. Do they want it, kind of marching? Do they want it walking? Do they want it, flowing? So there is like an Italian descriptor for each of those possible kind of tempos that you can have. So if you see a kind of an Italian word somewhere written in there, then that might be what it's, particularly at the beginning, that might be what it's kind of hinting at, is what sort of a general feel to that piece of music is it. So is it a driving force or is it slower? And in terms of tempo, oftentimes, especially in more popular music now, they actually give you an actual tempo, as in how many beats per minute there should be. and that will look like this. And really, there are online metronomes that you can use that will set you that speed exactly to that. Or if you've got an actual metronome, if you ever had piano lessons as a kid, I was scarred by that metronome. And you're trying to keep up, and it was too hard because it was too fast. But it's to keep you at the same beat all the way through. That's the whole point of a metronome, is trying to keep you at the same pace so you don't slow down and then speed up in certain places. It's basically like a drummer. That's the drummer's job. Drummer is supposed to hold the beat so that you don't all slow down and speed up all the time in a band. So that is your beats per minute. That would be information for a drummer if you were working in a band. It would be the drummer that needs to worry about, okay, that's the pace I need to set for everybody. As a singer, the chances are you're either singing with accompanists, so you've got a band who are doing that, so they kind of set the pace for you already, or you're working with a backing track, which again sets the pace for you, so you don't need to worry too much about working out what tempo you should be in. And artistically, if you are working by yourself, with a pianist or a guitarist or whatever, you can kind of set the tempo to whatever feels right for you. So that's more information that, again, is useful to know, but probably won't be something that you need to take into consideration too much as a singer. So you are doing really great. There is a lot of, kind of symbols to learn. It's like learning a whole new language, and they do talk about it being the language of music, because there's just symbols and signs and dots and this, that, and the other. But again, the more often you expose yourself to it, the better. So the more times you can be staring at a piece of sheet music while the music is playing, the quicker you start to recognize some of those symbols and understand what they mean. So do keep looking at as much sheet music as you can. You'll find a fair amount of sheet music for free online, certainly for older stuff. If you're looking at more classical music, for example, because it's all in the public domain, it's not copyrighted anymore. More popular stuff is kind of copyrighted, so you have to purchase that. Or you can use services like Scribd, which is like a subscription service for the written word. A bit like Spotify is for music, Scribd is for the written word, but it also has an awful lot of sheet music within there. So you pay like a monthly subscription and you have access to all of that. So there's resources out there, but the more you are looking at the music, the easier it is to start to decipher all of these symbols and really start to get to grips with what it all means. So we only have one lesson left, and in the next lesson we are going to look a little bit on repeats, how to work out when to move backwards and forwards within the music, and I'll also answer a few of the other questions that have been cropping up along the way and clarify anything that people have been confused on so far. So keep up the work, get your piece of music out, go and look for all of your dynamic markers and any articulation markers you can find. And again, you should be really close now to pretty much understanding nearly everything that's on that piece of paper now when you are looking at your piece of music.